It's the end of 2019 and it's been the best year ever for photography. Amazing cameras, fantastic tools, but part of being a photographer is always wanting a little bit more. So this is my wish list for 2020. And speaking of great tools, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. It's a website builder that's fantastic for anybody out there, but it's especially good for photography portfolios. I'll start with what I think is the most talked about future feature that I see on the internet, and that is computational photography coming to large sensor cameras, like full frame cameras. Like right now I'm shooting on the Canon EOS R. It's the first video I've done with it. And imagine if this could do everything that an iPhone 11 could do. I mean, there's a lot of things that a phone camera can't do and probably never can do because of the smaller sensor, smaller lens, things like low light performance, high ISOs, color depth. I mean, you name it. There's a bunch of stuff that it's really hard to fight with optics and larger sensor size. It's just kind of science. But when a modern phone is able to combine a dozen images into one perfectly stitched together HDR photo, that's almost impossible to do on a bigger camera. So a lot of people have reacted to me talking about this saying, well, yeah, you can shoot HDR on these cameras. I could shoot HDR on this, but I can't do it of a moving human and get all of those frames in focus. Somehow an iPhone, let's say, is able to capture that moment and make it look perfectly sharp and have correct exposure in the person, the background, all these different elements. It happened a dozen times this year that I'd go to take a photo on my big camera and then I look at the same image on my iPhone and it looks way better just because it's able to hold on to the sky and keep it blue instead of blown out white. But I also have some bad news for you. This totally isn't coming in 2020. It's a great idea. We know that we want it, but think about the difference in sensor size. A lot of phones will have a like 6x7 millimeter sensor that's very, very tiny, whereas a full frame SLR, you know, it's like 36 millimeters by 24. And yeah, this is where all the quality comes from, but it also means that you need a way faster computer to offload all of that information from the sensor and then chew through it. So to take 12 frames in a tiny fraction of a second, that's just not something most big cameras can do. And then also stitch it together intelligently. All of the computer parts, the GPU, the CPU inside of a phone are way ahead of where any camera is right now. So it's able to do a lot more quickly. So even if you smash together a Canon sensor and an iPhone 11's A13 Bionic chip, it couldn't handle all that data. It's way too much. We are still quite a few years away from this being possible. The next one is much more achievable. This can and should happen next year. I want to see Instagram get bigger, higher quality photos. This is at the top of my mind because Twitter just did it. They had a big upgrade to what you're able to upload, and so the thing that you see is not nearly as compressed. It's going to be a better archive of the photo on the internet. And it's funny because the high point of all this was actually Flickr back in the day. You could upload your photo at full resolution, it would hold on to that, and other people could download it. We're just throwing away all of these megapixels whenever we upload to the most popular social network on the internet. Honestly, this is an easy one, and I'm willing to bet this will happen in 2020. We had a lot of phones this year with great cameras on them, but I want to be ungrateful for a minute and wish for a while they could be better. First of all, I'd like to see them fix some of the features that they've already made pretty good. Best example, I think, is portrait mode. There's definitely times that I look at a portrait mode photo and I'm tricked into thinking it's real bokeh in the background. And especially because they've done such a good job with that blurry bokeh algorithm, it looks very realistic. But we're still a long way off from having perfect isolation around the subject, especially things like glasses and ears and curly hair all get distorted and cut off in weird ways and like blurred where they're not supposed to. The edge detection needs to get better before I can really start using it on a regular basis. We also saw some great ultra-wide cameras added, and they need to get better too. They are noticeably worse than the regular camera, the wide-angle camera that has been on all of our phones for a while. They're slower, the aperture doesn't open up as wide, the sensor isn't as good. I'm sure, you know, these companies need to hold on to something for next year. So 2020, that'll be the year that I think we're going to see all of those wide-angle cameras get much better. But it is hard to do. Even expensive ultra-wide lenses on full-frame cameras can still be prone to more lens distortion or chromatic aberration than more not wide lenses. And by the way, I know I haven't released my in-depth camera review of the iPhone 11. I'm sorry about that, but it's not going to happen by the end of this year. But if you can't wait for a comprehensive discussion of the iPhone 11, head over to StalmanPodcast.com. I've talked about it a lot. There are a lot of details already there that will be in the future video. I also want to see phone cameras get crazy with their image stabilization. It's already really good. So if you're, say, recording a video and you walk around like this, the lens is moving to compensate for the jiggling that you do, and it does a really good job. Then there is also some digital stabilization. It's all fantastic, and with night mode, it's especially important because you have to hold your camera still. But a rumor I saw the other day is that Apple is also working on sensor stabilization. So you've got your lens that's being stabilized and then a sensor behind it. All these things together would be amazing. But we don't have to wait around for all of our wishes to come true. Some are available right now, like this video's sponsor, Squarespace. With all the effort you put into your photography, you need a portfolio that can represent your work well, and that's what Squarespace is amazing at. I've been using them for over a decade now. They not only create professional looking, easy to update websites that are already SEO optimized, but they also store your photos in very high quality, unlike some social media networks I know. So you're always putting your best face forward to the world. So now it's time that you go to squarespace.com and see what your portfolio can look like. Get a little preview, test it out. And when you're ready to release your site, go to squarespace.com/Tyler Stalman and get 10% off your first domain or website. So thanks Squarespace for supporting the channel, but also for giving our photos a beautiful home on the internet. This one's for the professionals out there. We need to start expecting more out of our photography apps. Especially, I'm looking at you, Adobe. I was recently reading an interview with a member of the Lightroom team that was talking about how Lightroom CC is the future of Lightroom. And maybe it is. They've done a really good job with it. But do you know how many working professional photographers see Lightroom CC as the future? None. Internet connections just are not fast enough to upload 64 gigabyte memory cards fast enough to have a real functional cloud solution. We still need to focus on local storage. And unfortunately, all the development attention seems to be going to Lightroom CC. It's been moving forward. For example, I was testing the Mac Pro the other day, and I ran into some real bottlenecks. Lightroom Classic was only able to engage about 6 of the cores out of 28 that Jonathan Morrison had on his computer. So check out his channel for all the great Mac Pro coverage. Whereas Lightroom CC was way more optimized, was able to spread its processor use across all of those cores. Personally, in 2020, I'm planning on using Capture One a lot more and maybe even moving over to it. There's also some video tools I've waited forever to move over to photography, like vector scopes or waveform monitors or hue versus hue or saturation versus saturation. There's all these ways of editing video that just aren't really available in the photo world, and I have no idea why. And also, Photoshop and Lightroom really need to work on their hue saturation algorithms because they still cause all sorts of problems. In Lightroom, you can break the photo if two contrasty colors are next to each other, move the sliders too much, and it creates really weird artifacting. In Photoshop, there are a million ways you could write a hue saturation algorithm to change the saturation as you move a slider. But the good way is not to have the color channel clip as you move it up towards 100. It doesn't make sense. It's been like that for 20 years. Please just rewrite some of these adjustment layers. Another thing I'm very excited about in 2020 is having 10-bit HEIF support, which is coming to the 1DX Mark III. That's a very expensive top-of-the-line camera, but my wish list part is that this starts coming to all the cameras. HEIF is the image format popularized by iPhones, so it can save a compressed file that is way smaller than a JPEG, but maintains most of or all of the quality. In the case of these 10-bit files from Canon, I'm expecting way more image quality, so this means it could actually be viable to shoot in a compressed format, not always shoot RAW, and still have a more useful image. JPEG photos look great for most uses. The resolution is all there. The problem is once you start processing them. Best example is if you try to fix the white balance when it's way off, it will not work very well in a JPEG. And there's some image quality elements I'm going to be looking for in all the cameras next year, because if you haven't heard, the megapixel race is long over. I don't want to see any more 60, 70 megapixel cameras. Give me a good 30 and I will always be happy. Right now the battlegrounds are low light performance or minimal noise, also color depth, ease of use for correcting colors, and dynamic range. We've moved really far in dynamic range, especially in camera phones, but yeah, I want to see that come to big cameras as well. And a little lightning round, some personal items. This is what I want to see happen next year. A professional or semi-professional mirrorless camera from Canon. The EOS R is very good, but I need something with better controls, but these are supposed to be fast and keep going. I want to see some smaller mirrorless lenses from Canon. Sony has done a great job of this. Things like the 28mm, the 55mm, they're to scale with the camera. They're small, compact, and high quality. All the RF lenses that Canon's been coming out with are enormous. let's see some more compact options. A huge thing that Sony could do, and this is actually a video feature, I guess, bring the Cinetone color profile from the FX9. This is their new big professional camera, and it has a new color profile in it that looks amazing. This has been a weakness for Sony for a while. It's a lot of the reason people use Canon, but if Sony can get the color right, it could be a huge deal, and it looks like they may have. Sigma needs a proper line of lenses for Sony. Also, I'd love to see more film labs open. I've really slowed down my film shooting, but I miss it. And a lot of the challenge is finding a good place to develop and scan. Good scans are the most important part. And that's actually the last item. But there's always more to wish for. So go to StalmanPodcast.com. It can be part of your journey from an enthusiast to a professional. See you in the next video.